Well, good day to you. It is the very first day of 2025. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And as I always like to do, just kind of quickly point out to those people who are new, if you want to know more about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, feel free to look into this information for yourself. Feel free to investigate this information. And then and only then will you see if there's any truth to this. So I've included links in the description portion of every one of these videos that take you to websites that talk about this information to hopefully help in your inquiry. So if you look to the left or the bottom or the right or wherever the video is, you'll see a bunch of links. I would recommend checking out the Share International site first. They have the best background information there than you can anywhere else. If you want to come back and join the discussion, let me know what you think by posting a comment. You can do that. You can also post your question in the comment section, or you can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. Alrighty. Now, I also had an idea. I put up a post, and some people commented about it and said it was a lovely idea, but I wanted to try doing live streaming. Maybe not in place of these videos, but in addition to what I do already, where if you wanted to ask me an interactive question, it'd be more interactive. So if you wanted to ask me a question, I could try to answer it. And then if you wanted me to talk about something else, or you had another question, a follow-up question about that, it might be easier to kind of get your questions answered that way. And then I would just schedule it for a certain time during the week. And depending upon the demand, I would either continue to do it or I would stop. So we're going to try it. I don't know how to do it as an audio only. That's my only hang up, because I don't have a lot of privacy in my house. I share a pretty small house with two other people and a dog. So it makes doing recording or video recording a little bit more challenging. So anyway, we'll figure something out over the next couple of weeks. I'll post the schedule when we would do it, and then you can either join the discussion that way too or not. So it's up to you. But anyway, thanks for those who commented, and you're inspiring me to try it. All right, now, moving on. I did have a question and some wonderful comments, but I wanted to talk about, well, let me start with Razi first. He said, hope you're well, Gary, and I hope everybody's well, and I hope everyone's going to have a great 2025. All right, now, secondly, let's see what somebody said. This is coming from Realist Old School. Reap what you sow, not reap what someone else has sown. Well, that's a lovely thought. What are they talking about? Because from time to time I talk about the law of cause and effect. It's a very important thing to know, because how you live your life is based on, and the life that you have is based on what you're putting out. So if you are a critical person, but yet expect no criticism to come back your way, well, then you're probably not living the right way. Or if you are unfortunately putting out violent actions, well, you'll get a lot of violence come back to you. And so when Jesus said in the Bible, what you sow shall you reap, he really was breaking that universal law that covers all of life. Broke it down to the very smallest common denominator. Couldn't break it down any more than that, because then it wouldn't make much sense. What you sow, you know what I'm saying? Or what you reap. You wouldn't really understand what he was saying. But what you sow, so shall you reap. It's kind of like 1 + 1 = 2. What you put out, you get back. And that is true for the individual. Now, most people don't follow that or really look at their life in that way, under that, with the eyes of, am I putting this out? Am I the one that's causing this, right? Because if we all did that, we would be living in a totally different world. We would see that what we put out, we get back, But there's more to that law than just what you sow, so shall you reap. Because most people just think of it in terms of physical harm. I harm you physically, it comes back to me as harm. I betray you, it comes back to me as betrayal, or something to that effect, right? That's how most people relate karma to. And most people, when some harm is put to them, what they try to do one of two things. If they believe in this law, they cannot wait for that karma to come back on that other person, because that will make them feel like justice has been served, right? Or they try to help it along by helping that justice along themselves, which doesn't do much of anything other than just harm you back, right? So the other thing too that most people don't realize is that there's other parts of that law, even just for the individual. So it's not just physical harm, but it's also verbal harm. So it's what we say. It's also what we think. We mostly think that what goes on in our brain or our mind doesn't affect anybody else, and therefore wouldn't come back to us as any kind of karma. Well, the masters are going to show us that that's not true. It's not only what we do, it's what we say and what we think. And I have an example that I'll share with you in my own personal life where I realized that what I was thinking was causing the situation. And that has to do with road rage. Okay, so I was starting to experience more and more road rage around me. People brake checking me, cutting me off, slamming on their horns, that kind of thing, acting really rudely to me and those kind of things, creating dangerous situations and those kind of things. And it escalated to the point, and this was a few years back, it escalated to a point where somebody actually got out of their car. First, they stopped their car, so I couldn't go forward. I could perhaps put it in reverse, but I couldn't go forward. They cut me off in that way. Then they got out of their car, came over to my car. Now that could be a dangerous situation, depending upon the person, right? For them or for me. So had I had a weapon, I could have used it against them, or they had a weapon, they could use it against me, that kind of thing. It could have been very dangerous. When the whole situation went down, I ended up seeing that I was the one that caused that situation by my thoughts. I was the one that was creating it. And the good news for me at that time was I saw that if I was the one that created that situation and kept creating these situations that kept coming back up for me, I also could be the one that could stop it by not thinking that, or being more calm and passive when I drive, and not so worked up when somebody cuts me off or something to that effect, right? So by me changing my thoughts, I have not had a situation like that in years, thankfully. Now, the other thing too that I started to realize is criticism, when I was being very critical of other people. And one of the things that Maitreya, one of the teachings that he gave me during one of the times that I saw him was, he said he never judges anyone on whether they're good or bad. He only notices the good things that they do. And I tried that in my life. I applied it to myself. I tried it. And I do recommend, if you listen to any other parts of my video, if you forget everything else, hone in on this one teaching. It will change your life. But I didn't look at it from him not judging somebody. I tried to do it myself. So not saying that I didn't judge people, but I started to notice one or two good things that they did. And it not only, and this is, I didn't tell anybody I was doing this. I just did it within me. It changed the way that I started to think. It kind of reprogrammed the way that I was thinking. So I was thinking critically. I was getting a bunch of criticism back to me. People weren't wanting to hang out with me, and I couldn't figure out why. People didn't really want to talk to me, didn't perhaps show me any real affection in my life, this kind of thing. But it was because I was critical. And then when I changed that and I started to see people and maybe notice one or two good things that they were doing, if I noticed that criticism started to come up in my mind, and I kind of tried to reprogram it into, they do one or two good things like this or like that, I've noticed that people's attitudes toward me started to change. So there is truth to the fact that it's not only what we're doing, but it's what we're thinking and what we're saying. That's why honesty of mind is so important. Maitreya is going to teach how important honesty of mind is. To be honest with ourselves, to be able to see what we're seeing and what we're saying, what we're thinking, what we're saying, and what we're doing all line up. So it makes it much easier for us to see the integrity or the lack thereof. But I was considering myself a loving person, but yet I was being very critical in my thinking. The result was not what I had wanted. I changed my thoughts. I took the advice of Maitreya. I stopped perhaps being totally critical and started to notice one or two good things. And it's changed people's approach to me even. It's quite extraordinary. So try it, especially if you find that you're not loved by people around you. You know what I'm saying? And you want to be loved by people around you. And I'm not saying want to be popular, but I'm talking about just people having being truly caring for you. I've noticed that my work relationships with people have totally changed since I started doing this. People are much more loving and giving and caring of me. And it was never like that before. And it all came from me just changing the way that I was thinking. So yes, what you sow, so shall you reap, really has to do with the individual. Now, here's the other thing of that law, is there are other types of karma that these masters are going to be teaching us. So it's not only about the individual karma, but there's also group karma. And you can see it working out within families. You can also see it working out within work families. So it might not be perhaps your blood relatives, but it could be other people too, your friends, your family, your coworkers, and those kind of things. That kind of karma working out. That affects you. It might not be you personally, but it's affecting everybody, right? Same thing with racial karma. Same thing with national karma. And that's probably what this person is talking about, because I talked about countries create karma when they attack another country. These masters are going to show us the reality and the truth that we are really a part of a group when we're living in a country, and our leaders are ignorant of the laws of life. That's the other problem. So when they decide they want to attack another country, whether that's economic or even militarily, so it could be either, that karma comes back to that country in equal and opposite proportion, and the citizens of that country have to deal with it. And it's not only the United States, it could be other countries that have to deal. Every country has to deal with this. But me being in the United States, my country being very willing to attack other countries, whether that's economic or militarily, you can see the repercussions of it here in our country. So anyway, that's what I was talking about. And then, of course, there's world karma. Don't want to leave that out. So when it comes to the environment, right, you have people that don't think that there's a problem with the environment, don't think that pollution is an issue, but yet we're all getting sick because of the pollution. We haven't put two and two together, that what we're doing and the harm that we're doing to our environment is affecting us. And it doesn't matter if you are living in the United States or you're living in another country, it's affecting each and every one of us. Wherever you go, there's pollution. And that pollution is making us sick. And it's for each and every one of us to do something about it. That's the other good news about it. Just like with me with the road rage instance, we can change it, but we have to do it together in this situation. It can't just be an individual changing it and then it solves the problem. If it's a world problem that we're doing, we all have to change. This is where Maitreya and these masters are going to come in and show us that we have to change the problem. The problems are real, but they're also solvable. They're man-made, and because they're man-made, man can solve the problem. So that's the good news about seeing that we're at cause in our problems. So anyway, hopefully that answers that or addresses that concern, I guess. But I do appreciate the comment, and I'll give you a love. Nonetheless, they're realist, old school. It also shows me that you were listening to the video, so thank you for that. All right. Let's see. SK Nofall. So, do you believe in God? That is a question I get from time to time. Do I believe in God? Let's see. I would have to say no. I do not believe in God. Now, you would say, you must be an atheist. And that's not what it is at all. See, everyone is all wrapped up in their belief of, in this case, God, right? But to me, there's evidence of the creation of God, the creator throughout my whole life. I can just walk, I can even see it in my house, right? But I could walk outside the house and see the same creation, right? So what's there to believe? It's like I know that there's a creator, right? But I don't think that God can be known. I don't think that God can be believed in. I think that God can only be experienced. But Maitreya has another teaching for humanity that he's already given out, but he'll be teaching this to humanity at greater length, is this. Very simple. As man so relates to man, does man relate to God. Now here's where that truth really comes into play. What we worship as a God, whether that's Jesus, Jehovah, Yeshua, Allah, it doesn't matter what name you put to it. You could even be worshiping Zeus, right? Or worshiping a Norse god, or worshiping a Native American god. It doesn't matter what you worship, because what you're worshiping is really who and what you are. And this is where most people would disagree, but where most people, I think, this is what causes the most confusion when it comes to belief and different beliefs and those kind of things, is what you're worshiping yourself. So, for instance, and I'll give you a couple examples. You go back a few thousand years ago, when we were mainly hunters and gatherers, we worshipped gods that supplied that to us. So we worshipped gods that would give us a good hunt or a good harvest or whatever. Now, ask yourself this question if you live in urban areas. Have you ever prayed to God for a good hunt? Probably not. Now, I do know people, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, but this is true, that they believe that Jesus is a Georgia fan because they pray to Jesus when Georgia plays Alabama or Georgia plays Auburn or Tennessee, any other SEC team. They pray to Jesus to help their team out. It's true. You know what I'm saying? Now, it might not be everybody, but it's true for some people. And they don't believe that Jesus is going to support Alabama because they're a Georgia fan or vice versa. That's where the confusion comes into play. And then if you look at it politically, there's a political party that believes that Jesus is on their side, that the other side is the enemy of Jesus. That's why they hate Democrats so much, because they're starting to be fed this lie, and it's starting to really sink in, and they're starting to tell their kids this. It's the same thing that happened with religion, that Democrats are evil. Well, how would you see eye to eye with somebody that you think is evil? You can't. But if you were a Democrat, you would think that God's more of a Democrat. You know, thankfully the Democrats haven't really been thinking and praying to a God that thinks all Republicans are evil, but they're starting to think the same thing too in their own way, right? So therefore you can't see eye to eye on anything. It's total divisions, right? But it also boils down to who and what you are. When people see somebody as the Antichrist, it's always somebody that believes something different than them. It's not somebody who believes the same thing as them. Every time. It's a universal law. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with anybody that has a strong religious belief. God supports what they believe, supports their country, supports their race perhaps, supports their economic standing in life, and that is because of their God, when it's actually they're just thinking about and believing in and worshiping who and what they are. They're not worshiping something different. I'm no different than that. I think that we should share. I think that poverty should be eradicated. I think that we should have peace on earth. And I also think that my Jesus would say the same thing. So there you go. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you very much for the questions and the comments. I look forward to putting up videos in the very near future. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your New Year's Day. Take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.